The film D.A.R.Y.L. opens in South Carolina, where a blue car speeds along a dangerous, hilly terrain, pursued by a helicopter. Driving the car is Dr. Mulligan, a prominent physicist and electronic engineer, with a 10-year-old boy named Daryl as his passenger. They are being chased by soldiers from a secret government agency called TASCOM. For a brief moment, Dr. Mulligan loses the helicopter by taking cover among dense trees. Seizing the opportunity, he lets Daryl out of the car, and the boy escapes to a nearby trail. Dr. Mulligan then knowingly drives onto a more open road, drawing the helicopter's attention. In an ultimate act of sacrifice, he drives off a cliff into a river below. The car is crushed, leaving little chance for the soldiers to realize that Daryl had already escaped. Given his name, Dr. Mulligan is probably coming back too. As the helicopter carefully examines the wreckage, an elderly couple finds Daryl and takes him to Barkington, a nearby industrial town in South Carolina. Shortly afterward, Daryl is handed over to the authorities and eventually taken to a local child care center. There, he is bathed and subjected to basic physical well-being tests. During an eye examination, Daryl looks at Snellen's chart once, turns away, and flawlessly recalls all the letters in perfect sequence. It is clear that he is not an ordinary child and possesses extreme mental capabilities. Apparently, knowing the alphabet at 10 years old is remarkable. At this point, ChatGPT, what comes after D? Later, Howie Fox, the center's chief social worker, receives Daryl's medical assessment results. The child's body is perfectly healthy, but he suffers from severe amnesia, unable to recall his parents or his place of origin. Howie reassures him that they will find his biological parents, but until then, Daryl must stay at a foster home as per state regulations. However, what Howie and everyone else fail to realize is that Daryl is not like other missing or orphan children. He is actually an advanced AI robot. His name, D.A.R.Y.L., stands for Data Analyzing Robot Youth Lifeform, an artificial intelligence experiment developed by TASCOM, the secretive government organization. Despite appearing to be an ordinary 10-year-old boy, Daryl's brain functions as an advanced microcomputer with extraordinary capabilities. These include lightning-fast reflexes, exceptional multitasking skills, mastery of the alphabet, and the ability to hack and manipulate other computer systems. The military funded the D.A.R.Y.L. project with the long-term goal of developing a superior soldier. However, Dr. Mulligan, one of the scientists involved, had a change of heart and decided to rescue Daryl from the clutches of the government, leading to the dramatic chase at the beginning of the film. Daryl's adventure has just begun as he navigates his new life in a human world, unaware of the dark forces still searching for him. As he tries to fit in, his extraordinary abilities make him both a marvel and a mystery, setting the stage for an intense and emotional sci-fi journey. Becoming increasingly apprehensive about the project's unethical purposes, he decided to run away from the base along with Daryl after just a few days. Later, he contacted his close friend and neighbor, Andy Richardson, to tell him about the new kid in the center. Daryl was then placed in the care of Andy and his loving wife, Joyce, who became his foster parents. Since the couple couldn't have biological children, they wanted to adopt a child, but to get permission, they first had to foster one. They were more than happy to have Daryl and welcomed him into their temporary home. As days passed, Daryl easily fit into the Richardson household. He was extremely friendly and helpful, but the adults soon noticed his limited social skills. He didn't understand humor or sarcasm and took everything literally. To help him adjust, they introduced him to their neighbors, the Fox family, which included Mrs. Elaine, their teenage daughter Sherry, and their witty son, Tyler Turtle Fox. Turtle took Daryl home, and they played a computer game called Pole Position. Daryl watched with fascination and, when he tried, he broke the highest ever point tally on his first attempt. Turtle and Sherry were amused but didn't take it too seriously. A few days later, Daryl attended school for the first time and amazed his teacher with his exceptional academic abilities. Back at home, Andy decided to teach him baseball, only to be stunned when Daryl displayed extraordinary batting skills. This made Andy envision his local baseball team, the Mohawks, winning the championship. However, he made Daryl promise not to reveal his talent, fearing the boy would be poached by other teams. Unfamiliar with the concept of secrecy, Daryl immediately told his foster mother about his baseball prowess. Meanwhile, Daryl also started to learn about male attraction toward females, though he couldn't quite make sense of it. One day, Andy took Daryl to an ATM to withdraw money, but the machine displayed an insufficient funds message due to a bank computer malfunction. Without hesitation, Daryl intervened, correcting the error and even manipulating the system to display $1.4 million in Andy's account unbeknownst to him. Later, Daryl and Andy went to the school to warm up for a baseball game. Meanwhile, at home, Joyce confided in her friends about her mixed emotions. She admitted feeling unwanted as a mother because Daryl was such a perfect child. He did all his chores by himself, ironed his own clothes, made his own bed, and even polished his shoes. She jokingly lamented that Daryl was a better mom than she was. However, one day, the Richardsons received bad news. Authorities had found Daryl's biological parents. Disheartened, they decide to cooperate and allow Daryl to reunite with his parents. However, it is evident that the robot boy has become attached to Joyce and Andy. He even insists on living with them for the rest of his life. Andy, however, tells him that he must go with his real parents, as they miss him and have been looking for him for months. The next morning, Daryl's parents, Ellen and Jeffrey, arrive in Barkington to take him home. Turtle is so distraught about the situation that he can't bring himself to tell his friend goodbye. After a while, the parents drive Daryl straight to an airport, and they board a private jet to fly back home. In a shocking twist, it is then revealed that Ellen and Jeffrey are actually task completion source operatives. Once they arrive at their destination, Daryl undergoes a debriefing regarding the valuable lessons he learned during his time with the Richardsons. The debriefing highlights significant moments, such as his deliberate decision to strike out during the baseball game. Additionally, Daryl's subjective preference for chocolate-flavored ice cream over vanilla is noted. This revelation astounds Jeffrey, as it makes him believe that Daryl is capable of having human emotions. However, Ellen remains unconvinced. To settle the matter, Jeffrey decides to run some biochemical tests. They place Daryl in a room full of doctors and begin a thorough examination of his brain. However, Daryl hacks into the lab's computer and types out that he is scared, an emotion that a robot is not supposed to feel. The scene abruptly changes, and we see Dr. Jeffrey reporting his findings to the military generals at the Pentagon. The revelation of Daryl's capacity for human emotions, including fear, leads the military to deem the Daryl experiment a failure. Jeffrey is surprised by their decision, as he believes that, because of Dr. Mulligan's actions, they know much more about Daryl than they did before. However, the generals believe that a robot like Daryl is useless to the army. They decide to terminate the project. Furthermore, they order Dr. Jeffrey to build an adult version of Daryl, programmed to learn everything the army teaches, a fearless, technically skilled, devastating soldier. However, they still intend to call it Daryl, a name that does not strike fear into anyone. Disheartened, Dr. Jeffrey goes to deliver the bad news to Daryl, but he has grown so attached to the boy that he does not have the courage to do so. Daryl seizes the opportunity to request that the Richardsons and his friend Turtle be allowed to visit him. Surprisingly, Dr. Jeffrey agrees, feeling that they deserve to meet him one last time before he is dismantled. Soon, the Richardsons, Turtle, and his father, Howie, arrive at the facility, unaware of the heartbreaking farewell awaiting them. At Taysom Laboratories, Dr. Jeffrey welcomes the visitors into the high-tech facility. He reveals the shocking truth about Daryl, much to their utter astonishment. Initially, they find it difficult to believe, unable to process what they are hearing. However, their skepticism soon turns to awe when Dr. Jeffrey demonstrates some of Daryl's ultra-human abilities. They watch in stunned silence as Daryl exhibits extraordinary feats that no ordinary boy could possibly achieve. His intelligence, speed, and agility are far beyond human capacity, leaving everyone speechless. Shortly after this revelation, Daryl is reunited with his foster family. As he embraces them warmly, emotions run high. This powerful moment deeply moves Dr. Jeffrey, and he makes a tough yet heartfelt decision. He resolves to free Daryl forever. After sending the family back home, Jeffrey begins to devise a daring plan to smuggle Daryl out of the heavily monitored facility. However, Jeffrey's longtime colleague, Dr. Ellen, learns of the plan. Concerned yet torn, she ultimately alerts the military chief. Upon hearing the news, the military chief wastes no time. He immediately arrives at the facility, storming through the halls with his men, and gives a chilling order: the complete destruction of Daryl. To ensure the mission is carried out efficiently, he assigns Dr. Ellen the grim task of dismantling Daryl. Though she hesitates, conflicted over what is right and wrong, she begrudgingly proceeds with the orders. Later, the military chief briefs the higher authorities, confidently reporting that Daryl has been terminated. Unbeknownst to him, things are not as they seem. Dr. Jeffrey had managed to convince Dr. Ellen to spare Daryl's life at the last moment. Instead of destroying him, she had discreetly helped Jeffrey smuggle the robotic boy out of the lab. Jeffrey had hidden Daryl in the trunk of his car and, under the cover of night, drove away from the facility unnoticed. Just when it seemed like their escape was successful, disaster struck. Back at the lab, the military chief stumbled upon a fatal mistake. Messages exchanged between Dr. Jeffrey and Ellen were still visible on the lab's computer. Despite being some of the world's leading scientists, they had neglected to cover their digital tracks. Now fully aware that Daryl was still operational, the military chief immediately mobilized his men and ordered them to intercept Jeffrey before he could get too far. By this point, Jeffrey had already driven beyond the facility's premises. A high-speed pursuit quickly ensued as military vehicles gave chase. The tension escalated when Jeffrey struggled to keep control of the car at such high speeds, but Daryl, possessing incredible reflexes and superhuman driving skills, took the wheel. He expertly maneuvered the vehicle, evading the pursuing military cars with near impossible precision. After a thrilling chase, the duo managed to shake off their pursuers and sought refuge at a small, run-down motel for the night. There, they rested in changed vehicles, switching to an old, inconspicuous truck to throw off any trackers. The following morning, Jeffrey had a new plan. He intended to take Daryl to a secret location where he would be safe from the authorities. Everything appeared to be going according to plan until the two ran into a police checkpoint on the outskirts of town. Jeffrey, keeping his composure, attempted to distract the officer on duty. He presented all the necessary identification and papers, trying to appear as unremarkable as possible. For a moment, it seemed as though they would make it through unscathed. However, just as they were about to leave, the officer caught a glimpse of Daryl through the rear window. Suspicion flared in his eyes as he immediately ordered Jeffrey to stop the vehicle. But Jeffrey knew they couldn't afford to be caught. He made the split-second decision to keep driving, ignoring the officer's commands. Left with no other option, the cop raised his gun and fired. The bullet struck Jeffrey directly in the abdomen. Despite the agonizing pain, Jeffrey pushed forward, determined to get Daryl to safety. Somehow, they managed to escape the checkpoint, but Jeffrey's condition rapidly deteriorated. He finally stopped the truck near a dense forest, stumbling outside as blood seeped through his clothing. Daryl rushed to his side, but it was too late. Jeffrey had lost too much blood. With his final breaths, he collapsed in Daryl's arms, leaving the young robot devastated. For the first time in his existence, Daryl experienced the profound pain of loss, his synthetic heart breaking as he mourned his fallen friend. That night, determined to escape, Daryl sneaked into a nearby United States Air Force base. Using his exceptional intelligence, he hacked into a secure computer system, triggering multiple alarms throughout the facility. While the soldiers scrambled to investigate the alarms, Daryl seized the opportunity to steal an advanced Lockheed State Route 71 Blackbird jet. The base's personnel could only watch helplessly as the 10-year-old robotic boy commandeered the aircraft and took off into the sky. The military, realizing the situation, attempted to intercept the jet. However, no missile or aircraft in their arsenal was capable of catching up with the Blackbird. Desperate, they informed Daryl that the aircraft had a built-in self-destruct mechanism, which would be activated mid-flight. Unshaken, Daryl was already one step ahead. He devised a daring plan to fake his own death. He set the aircraft on autopilot toward his hometown, Barkington, and at the very last second before detonation, he ejected. Unfortunately, the extreme G-forces from the ejection temporarily knocked him unconscious. Still strapped to his seat, Daryl plummeted into Blue Lake, sinking rapidly due to the added weight. Unable to move or regain consciousness, he drowned, disappearing beneath the water's surface.